So it's no secret that my absolute favorite champion is Jarvan. I've played him since his release and have used him as my mainstay hero for the longest time. Hell, the guy is basically my background for my Twitter, stream, and Facebook. However, it's also pretty known how colorful his entire existence has been. Jarvan was designed to be a leader type of champion. Up to that time, most initiation was slow and tied to summoner spells and ultimates. However, Jarvan would shake things up by being someone who could force fights at will and make sure shit was happening. His entire kit encouraged diving through the enemy team and being at the center of the fray. His shield would get stronger the more people you tagged with it, his flag would buff his team immensely, and the ultimate would basically center the fight around him. Up until recently, he was one of the very few champions with a non-ultimate, non-summoned spell AoE initiation. He was beastly and had a lot of versatility and self-sufficiency built in. Sadly, when he was released, he wasn't used because he had horrifically crippling mana issues, but made quite a deadly splash when a few bug fixes were made and the gold per 5 meta became a thing and he was able to fix his sustain issues. They nerfed him a bit, then nerfed the items he was abusing, and then he disappeared for a while when that went away. In Season 2, he returned a little bit, but mostly as a replacement for Nautilus and other champions if they were picked or banned, and he was simply avoided during the farm invasion meta. Then Season 3 hit and efficiency was raised across the board for all champions and heroes. Jarvan saw a ton of love with the increased armory of gear. Super self-sufficient champions basically went overboard when they were able to obtain items much easier, and as such, he became super powerful with items like Runic Bulwark, Spirit of the Lizard Elder, and so on. He became super easy to build for any role and thus provided far more utility and power than should be allowed. He became a jack of all trades, master of fucking everything. He could tank, assassinate, slug it out, aura whore, and so on. While this isn't inherently a bad thing, it is when the champion could basically do all of that at the same time. Riot, rightfully so, started nerfing him and picking at him. They hit his numbers and the items he was strong with, but they started hitting his utility immensely, going as far as to straight out removing the armor component on his flag aura, then later in Season 4 flat out removing the armor altogether. Overall, the changes made him far less versatile than he used to be, and he became some sort of tanky assassin. While you technically can still use him as a tanky initiator, it's not really as powerful as simply using him to dunk someone. Basically put, Jarvan is suffering through some sort of identity crisis. The removal of his flag's utility and self-sufficiency shoehorned him into his pure killing role rather than allowing him the option to pick a supportive role instead. Now, I'm not saying that reworking him into a supportive role will somehow save him and make him easier to balance in the future. I'm just bringing this up because I feel he lost some of his flavor a long time ago and Riot is looking on patching him up. They are boosting some of his assassination power and, while that can work, I fear it might just push him in that direction further and he'll sort of just become another assassin rather than the manliest man of Demacia. Now, I've already gone into great lengths in the past about conditional power and how, when done right, it can be immensely beneficial and flavorful to design. Several champions have it, such as Cassiopeia with her E resetting when hitting a poisoned champion, Zed's ultimate hitting for nothing if you don't attack an opponent while they are debuffed, but dealing a shitload if you properly assault them, and Shen's new Q giving him a power boost if he pulls it through someone. The power in these situations is immense, but so is the potential of outplaying them or screwing them up. This makes the abilities far more fair, even if they have exponentially more power than you normally allow. If I was to give Jarvan any changes, it would be to revive an old build of his. In the past, maxing out your flag first was something very viable, and in some metas it was considered mandatory. It was basically a giant buff to your team due to the armor and attack speed. It made Jarvan tankier obviously, and allowed him to slug it out with people using a bruiser build, and made Aura Horde Jarvan ridiculously powerful. Flag Jarvan was a bit unfair though in that the power was rather unstoppable as it was just a huge boon for his team and it would allow them to scale too hard too early. The armor aura always being there and always benefiting the team was far too strong, which is why Riot eventually removed it. However, with the idea of conditional power, I feel the flag could be allowed to return back to that state. Jarvan could be given armor on his flag back, but make it so the flag is targetable by the enemy and that it can be destroyed. Not only that, but using your Q on it to drag yourself as Jarvan would damage the flag and thus remove the armor aura and even probably the attack speed portion if it proves to be too much. This makes it so Jarvan could decide to buff his team and strengthening their position, holding the line so to speak, or using it to initiate against the enemy team and charging forward. This could convince players to max out flag first for the team utility and promote tank Jarvan over assassin Jarvan. To reiterate, his flag could also have an armor aura once again, but the flag can be destroyed by the enemy team, and it is also destroyed by being hit by Jarvan's Q. This would also give him the sustain he's been lacking in the jungle, as the removal of the armor from his flag a long time ago truly put the pressure on his ability to clear in a healthy state. As far as his ultimate goes, I had two ideas that both have pros and cons. Both ideas are supported by the flag idea already mentioned, so keep that in mind. The first ultimate buff would be what Riot has already suggested, although they reversed it, in that Jarvan leaves a flag in the middle of Cataclysm. It would have all the benefits of the current rank of your flag, although of course they wouldn't overlap. The idea behind this is to not discourage Jarvan from using his EQ initiation due to not wanting to shatter the flag. This way, even if the flag used for initiation is shattered, his team will have the flag aura for the current team fight. This makes his ultimate an even deadlier team fighting tool, rather than the awkward to use, sometimes potentially backfiring one that exists now. Even so, the issue with it would likely be that this means damaged Jarvan would be able to provide the aura as well, and it's a valid issue. At the very least, it could be mitigated by the fact that the aura is determined by the rank of his flag. The second ultimate idea is more radical, so I'm just shooting the shit with this one. The change is that Jarvan can now target his flag as the target of his ultimate. You could effectively ER into an area and use your walls more strategically. You'd technically be losing all the damage from it, but you'd be able to initiate without shattering the aura, or even pull off some plays by lunging over the enemy and walling them off in some corridor without risking cutting off your own teammates. You could even ER into the fray and Q right after to do a clever knockup on the enemy if you so well pleased. In short, I like his supportive qualities revamped in order to allow him to branch out into more builds again. Right now, he's basically pigeonholed into one spec since it's just flat out better than the others. If a change like this was handled properly, then he could become the king of versatility again without becoming the overbearing master of everything like he was before.